Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Balance in Life, where today we're going to be having a discussion around back to school. It's almost that time, and there are certainly different situations, different thoughts, questions, feelings around returning to school. Leading us in this conversation, we are so excited to have our 2020 Virginia Teacher of the Year, Andrea Carson Johnson, to lead that discussion with us. And before we get started and turn it over to Andrea, as soon as Herman stops the video, it will be time for you to go. We're going to watch a short video. As Herman is queuing that up, I just want to welcome you on behalf of Virginia Cooperative Extension, the Human Development Program Team, and NC State University, and I am your host, Crystal Tyler Mackey. Herman, we are ready when you are.
But the Teacher of the Year, please welcome Andrea Carson Johnson.
I tell my students that anything worth doing is worth doing well, and teaching is perhaps the most important thing worth doing well. And I feel so fortunate to be representing these folks here, to be representing my school system, to be representing the teachers, and to be representing my students.
My heart is pounding. I am so excited to be here. Just being here is an honor. When I hear my name from the governor, I was in shock, overwhelmed, but so honored and so privileged to be here representing the state of Virginia.
So what do you think it's going to be like being Teacher of the Year?
I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be overwhelming. I'm looking forward to being the ambassador for my school system, for the teachers that I work with, for the students that I work with. I'm really looking forward to all the opportunities that this new position will afford me.
So, what do you have planned for your first day back at school after this?
We are reading Beowulf, so we're jumping right into Beowulf, back to English literature and classics, and then we're getting ready for job interviews. So we are getting ready to do some interviewing skills and email etiquette, so real world experience.
Andrea, we hope we didn't embarrass you too much, but we're just so honored to have you here with us this morning.
Thank you, Crystal. I hadn't seen that video since October, so it was interesting to go back and relive that really special day in my life. So welcome everyone. I'm Andrea Johnson, and I am so honored to be here with you this morning to speak to you about what is on all of our minds. How do we balance our life when we know we are headed back to school in just a few weeks? So as you saw there, I am the 2020 Virginia Teacher of the Year. I'm a nationally board certified teacher. I teach secondary English. I'm also the department chair for English at Salem City Schools. I generally teach not the highest level of students, and that's on purpose. I feel like my skill set needs to be with the students who need me most. So each year I teach at least 2 inclusion classes that I could co-teach with a special education teacher. Prior to working in Salem, I worked with Suffolk Public Schools at Lakeland High School. And I am a career switcher. My first job after graduation was as the program director at the Airfield 4-H Educational Center. So I am no stranger to Virginia Cooperative Extension. And I think what's most important for us to know today, as we're talking about returning to school, is that I am also a mom to a rising 6th grader and 4th grader. So everything I'm going to talk to you about today, I am living and feeling just like you are. I wanted to share a little bit about my teaching philosophy with you, and it's going to sound a lot like 4-H because that is where I grew up. It's how I learned to teach. And so I brought a lot of that hands-on learning philosophy that I learned in 4-H right into the classroom. So I believe that effective teaching is engaging, it's hands-on, it's experiential learning. That the teacher-student relationship should be reciprocal and cooperative, which is what makes distance learning so difficult, and that students are more invested in their learning when they know that their teachers are invested in them. I start every presentation with this tenets of whole child education. And this is from the ASCD, and I love this because, again, I think this is going to ring true to a lot of you all who are extension professionals. Every student should enter school healthy, and they should learn about a healthy lifestyle. Every student should be able to learn in an environment that is physically and emotionally safe. Every student should be actively engaged in learning. Every student should have access to personalized learning supported by qualified, caring adults. And every student should be challenged academically and prepared for success or the workforce. So this is what a accomplished classroom looks like. I think it also ties in so nicely with what the mission of Extension does for youth. So this spring, we found ourselves in crisis schooling. This fall, we are no longer going to be in crisis learning in the sense that teachers just all of a sudden had to switch over to online learning, although we probably will find ourselves in periods of distance learning. But although we are in a crisis of a pandemic, this fall, distance learning should be probably more professional, more impactful than what you saw for your children in the spring. And the reason why is because in the beginning, there was very little guidance for us as teachers about how to convert to online learning. Some classrooms had not used any online platforms before, and then within a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, all of a sudden students were supposed to be learning online, and that's difficult to do. But the DOE has spent these past few months, as well as the schools, putting forth guiding documents. Distance learning, and this is important to know because sometimes these words are used interchangeably, is not homeschooling. Homeschooling is when the parent takes on the entire role as the teacher. In good, strong distance learning, the student will still have a relationship with their teacher, although the parent might be supervising. And what we know as educators is that we experienced a grace period from parents this spring. This idea that intuitively parents knew we were in crisis schooling. However, parent expectations for the fall is going to be different. They are going to expect their children to be learning and growing. This is going to be school, whether we're in brick and mortar or online. So our mission as parents and educators is to face the unknowable future with grace. Some of your school systems have already started to they're starting to roll out what they're going to do for school. Some of your school systems have not yet, but most likely you will probably find yourself in a school division that is going to offer hybrid learning of some sort, where students will be in the class for a couple of days a week and then they will be learning at home for a couple of days a week. Depending on infection rates, schools may then roll into periods of 100% distance learning. And if we can get to a place of normalcy, then we will be prepared to roll into 100% brick and mortar school. We are starting to see school divisions in Virginia, like Richmond and Manassas, electing 100% distance in the fall already. This year, we are going to be responsible as educators for remediating learning loss, teaching new content, assessing students on new content, and meeting students' social emotional needs. That is a lot. It is a tall order for teachers. And in the back of our mind, we are thinking, how do we teach and assess what students know equitably with that whole child in mind in a way that engages our students even during distance learning? And that's tough. How do we engage our students even in distance learning? And what I want to leave us with here is that no one alive has ever been through what we are about to experience. And we have to give each other grace. We're all going to make mistakes, teachers, school systems, parents, students. And so this idea of growth mindset, that we're going to learn and get better with time, that is going to be so key to managing these next few months in a healthy way. We have to accept what we cannot control. We have to accept that we cannot tame all the uncertainties facing us. And I really want to be real with you all right here for a moment. The anxiety you may be facing right now is legitimate. These are the questions that you're asking, and I know you're asking because I'm asking as a mom and a teacher too. Do I choose distance or hybrid learning for my children? How am I going to juggle the work demands and childcare if we are in distance learning? How am I going to juggle childcare if we're in 100% distance learning and we're all in the house? That was hard in the spring. How am I going to juggle expenses I wasn't planning for with newfound childcare needs? Do I return to the office for work? Is it safe? What happens if I get sick? What happens if my child, my parent, my partner gets sick? And how am I going to process these feelings of anger and depression and sadness and fear? And I don't know if you've been through that cycle of emotion, but I have a lot. And when I think I've come to acceptance, the next day I might find myself angry again. These are real feelings. And teachers and school leaders like you, honestly, we are so torn right now. We desperately want to return to the classroom. But if we're being honest, we're scared about that for the reasons above. But we know that brick and mortar schools are where students have the most likely opportunity to get an equitable education. We know that distance learning and online learning does not equal equity. And so that's why you see that hybrid learning being offered in your division, or most likely going to be offered in your division, because brick and mortar school equals equity. It's where kids get mental health care. It's where kids get fed. It's where kids have access to caring adults. It's where kids have socialization. And so I know a lot of us feel apprehensive about hybrid learning and infection. That's where masks comes in, social distancing. That's where schools are trying to balance the health needs with the social emotional needs of your students. And yet, as we go back to school, hybrid or not, we are still going to juggle all of those things above. Teachers are going to be worried about the lives of your children, our children, ourselves, our family, your family. So much unknown. So I want to play this for you. Some of you might have seen this before. If you haven't, I love it so much. I feel like she captures what it felt like to be an educator and a parent in a song.
Hey, so as some of you guys might know, I'm a music teacher, and I found that one of the best ways that I can process the whole transition to online learning and teaching is to write a song. So I wrote a song. I'd like to share that with you guys now. Here we go.
I love this video so much because I feel like this is how we all felt. Even in our best days, we were at our wits' end sometimes. None of us were prepared for our entire lives and our entire children's schooling to be completely turned upside down. So in the spring, I tried to give it a visual here. In the spring, online learning was probably either overwhelming in your household and that you felt like you were trying to take a drink out of a fire hydrant. There was so much coming at you. There were so many different platforms your children were supposed to be learning on. You didn't know where you're supposed to go. You didn't have all the logins. It was just overwhelming. Or that was the case for one of my son's classroom a little bit. Or you felt like this. It was underwhelming. There wasn't enough for your kids to do. And so while you're trying to work at home, your kids are in the background. I'm bored. It's summer vacation in March. And so this was really an untenable situation, whichever way you looked at it. This fall, one of the things that we know is to make this manageable for parents and students is that all school systems need a centralized learning management system. And so what you will see if you have not yet from your school system is that there's going to be a rolling out either of Google Classroom or Schoology or Canvas. A lot of school systems are going to Canvas, and the entire school system from K to 12 will be utilizing one system, one login, one place to go for parents and students to have access to everything they need. And I don't know about y'all, but that will make my life so much easier. That was one of the big takeaway for us as educators. How do we centralize everything our students have to do? The other thing that we knew that we had to do, and I was fortunate as Teacher of the Year, I got to sit on a lot of these task force. So these documents I'm going to share with you, I had a hand in helping shape in one way or another. The one thing that we knew when we went into distance learning in the spring when it was really crisis, is that we had to focus on Maslow before Bloom. We had to focus on our students' social emotional needs before we focused on academics. And so what you probably noticed in the spring is your teachers, your students' teachers probably did a lot more relationship building, a lot more social emotional check-in, and probably less academics. And for some of you, that might have been frustrating, but that was per the state. How do we maintain relationships? How do we make sure our kids are healthy and loved? And how are we checking in with them as teachers? And academics will come later. And so I just screenshotted 2 pictures straight out of this document. The very first questions for administrators and teachers in the spring from the Department of Ed was, how are you focusing on the social and emotional needs of your students? That's your #1 goal in crisis learning. But this summer, we've been working on, all right, we know crisis learning is over. Now we have to go back to school, whether school is brick and mortar or if it's hybrid or online. And so the DOE released this document this summer, the Recover, Redesign, and Restart. And from the DOE, you will see, again, our commitment to students is unwavering. And we know that there's going to be learning loss, and we have to meet that learning loss. But again, when we go back to school, when we are trying to equitably meet the needs of all of our students, social emotional needs are first. And so even though this document kind of moves into academics in a way that the crisis learning document did not, this idea that our social and emotional sense of safety, belonging, and mental health, that's our #1 priority for the 2021 school year. If you've not seen your schools roll out their plan for the fall yet, this is an interesting document to read, especially if you want to do any advocating for your schools or your students with your school board. This is what the DOE has kind of said, this is what we would like to see happen in the fall, but every decision about what the fall looks like is a local decision with your local school division. So I've spent the past 5 months really thinking about what is the good to come from the pandemic. I could spend a lot of time complaining, as I'm sure you could too, about what was not good. But I really think that we as adults have to practice this growth mindset. We have to model that for our students, because if we are not excited about what the fall is going to look like for our students, then our children will not be excited about what the fall looks like for their learning. So let's practice this growth mindset. So I'm going to share with you kind of my optimistic view about how the pandemic has changed academia and education for the good. So if there's anything that we've learned, is that our students have to be the center of their learning. And in distance learning, this is especially true. So many of us went to school where our teachers were the sage on the stage, and they lectured to us, we took notes, we took a quiz, we passed the quiz, or we failed it, and then we moved on, and that was that. Schools have changed, and we've been moving to student-centered learning for the past few years, but now more than ever, this is so obvious. We have to put the students at the center of our classroom. They have to be involved in the planning of what we do, the implementation of what we do, the assessments. How do we get them involved? How do we move from do as I say to based on your needs, let's co-develop and implement a plan for your learning? And that's probably true in your household as well, if your students are going to be learning from home. As a parent, how do we move from do as I say or do as your teacher says to what are some things that would make this more palatable to learn? What would you like to learn about this unit? So you've heard me say social emotional learning, and this is just, I think, the perfect definition of what it is, and this is from Castle. Social emotional learning is the process through which children and adults understand and manage their emotions. And this has become the focus of public education. We have realized as teachers, it's not enough to just teach content. We have to teach humans. We are raising humans. And so how do we embed social emotional learning opportunities into the content we also expect them to learn? It's important. When we are embedding social emotional learning into our classroom, we see more efficacy from students, we see literacy gains, a huge increase in students self-reporting on their feelings about school. And so we know that social emotional learning took a hit in the spring when kids were suddenly cut off from their friends, their peers, their teachers, their support systems. And so as parents, I would say, how are we building in opportunities to meet the social emotional needs of our students at home? And I'm going to give you some practical strategies. So if your teachers are doing this in the classroom, and many of them are, here are some ways that you could support them at home, perhaps, or here are some things you might see happening that may look different than how we learned, and it may seem sometimes fluffy in distance learning, but it actually, all of these practices are skill-based and social emotional based. So if you see your students journaling, that is because your teacher or their teacher is trying to hit social emotional learning. If they're not journaling, as a parent, how can you get your student to journal? If you see teachers reading aloud, even in middle school and high school, that's for a reason. How can you read aloud with your child at home too? And not just read aloud, but discuss the implication of the text that you're reading. If you see art-based activities, and I imagine you'll see a lot of those increase during distance learning, it's because it's enriching the skills being taught. And so I teach English. The two pictures you see on the screen are when students drew about what we learned in the text. And so if that's not happening, but your students are being assigned to a text to read at home, how can you have them have creative time where they're making art based on what they're learning? As you all know, as extension professionals, project-based learning is so important. Performance-based learning is so important. I think you will see an increase in that in periods of distance learning. Group work is going to be hard, obviously, in distance learning, but I think if we're in hybrid, teachers are going to work hard to figure out how can we socially distance, but really get our kids working together, because we know communication and advocacy and self-regulation is so important, and they haven't had a chance to do that, some of our kids, since February. Games at home, a family game night, works on those social emotional skills. Practicing growth mindset language in your home. That is going to be huge. Our kids are watching us as adults. If we are complaining about what we are walking into in August and September, they are internalizing that. And so we have to practice. We say this in my classroom, the power of not yet. So when a student says, I can't do that, I can't write that essay, I'll say, it's frustrating now, but it doesn't mean you can't. It just means you're not there yet. Here are some things we're going to work on. Teaching your children what mindfulness is. We've been doing that in school a lot in the past few years. De-escalation strategies that they can use themselves. Because we're feeling stress, our kids are feeling stress too. Building in opportunities for self-reflection. We do this as teachers at the end of the assignment, at the end of the school day, at the end of a unit. In my home, we do this at dinner. How can we self-reflect on the day? What was the peak and the pit of the day? Prioritizing kindness, giving them opportunities to empathize with others. So choosing texts that you're reading with your kids that they have an opportunity to empathize with someone different than them. Having your students at home, your children, set and track some of their own learning goals. Having them frequently communicate, actively talk and listen, and right now, this is hard because they're not in the classroom. So with you as your parent, and I know this is hard because my husband and I don't do the best of this, but setting time aside where we are focusing 100% of our attention on our kid and really listening to them and really letting them talk. So for us, it could be play dates with our own kids and also virtual play dates with through Zoom with your kids' friends. All right. The other thing, I'm running out of time. I knew I would run out of time. So I'm going to go through this really quickly. Crystal has the slides that she can share with you. But the other thing I wanted to say is if there's a benefit to us being home these past few months is that our kids have been able to see the social movement that is happening. We have all been home to see the social justice that needs to happen. And our kids are paying attention. And so what this has triggered for us in the school education field is, how do we focus better on culturally responsive teaching? And I won't go through all the slides, but I want you all to know as parents that as teachers, we are having this conversation. How do we center our students? How do we make sure that our curriculum is reflecting all of our students? Because we know that for too long, the American education system has reflected an Anglo perspective, and that's got to change. And those conversations are happening in huge ways in education circles right now. And that is for the benefit of our students. If as a parent, you're interested in how can you do some culturally responsive teaching at home, there's some websites in here. They are amazing. If you've never been to Teaching Tolerance, it's sort of an educator-focused website, but great discussion, sentence stems, how do you respond to students' questions? And you can use those as a parent to respond to questions that your children might be asking when they're seeing the news about George Floyd and protests and all of these social justice issues that are happening right now. All right, again, some more resources in here for you. Culturally responsive teaching, I just want to speak on this slide for just a minute, focuses on storytelling. Humans' brains were wired for storytelling. So if there's one thing that I could leave you with as a parent about how do I really connect with my kids, how do I make sure they're not falling behind, read and talk, read and talk, read and talk. Our brains are wired for communication. Our brains are wired for storytelling. And make sure that you are reading and talking about stories from diverse backgrounds, that we are raising global citizens. Okay, so there's some more information about student-centered learning. You are going to see this happening in your classrooms if they are hybrid or distance learning, where students are probably going to get more choice and voice in what they do because teachers are really focusing on how to engage students in an online world. This website right here from Florida Department of Ed has an awesome list of educational resources. Awesome. Especially if you're thinking about how do I meet my kids' academic needs. And if you are looking for academic needs to bridge gaps that you see that your child has, Khan Academy is probably the best free online schooling support that you can possibly get. But I also love TED Ed too. So those resources are here for you. And I just wanted to leave you with these final thoughts. If you are like me and my husband, you probably have felt like a dumpster fire at points in these past few months. And we are professionals in the education field, and we still feel like there have been times where we have failed. And this picture just sums up at points what I have felt like over the year. And I saw this graphic on Facebook sometime in the past week, and I thought, if this doesn't speak to where we are, most of us as parents and professionals, and I know it's kind of education related, but a lot of it's not. We are here. There's so much that we're juggling right now, and it is not easy. But I wanted to leave you with this picture right here. The one thing that we know as youth development professionals, as educators, and I hope the parents on this call know too, is that we are working to do what's best for your kids. And there is no easy answer. There's no right answer. Whatever we do in the next few months, people are going to be angry. But the silver lining is kids are incredibly resilient, and they will move past this. And so much of how they're going to move and grow and reflect back on this experience is how we handle it. So let us know that we're all here. There are going to be days like this, the dumpster fire, but if we can handle it with grace, if we can use growth mindset, if we can remember to give others grace, the kids will internalize that. The kids are going to be all right. And just, there's some reference page right there. So, Crystal, I think
Great.
I'm ready to
Yes. This is so good. Andrea, thank you so much. I just want to say thank you for the reminders that you gave us, because you gave us some great reminders, for your transparency, because not only is Andrea 2020 Teacher of the Year for Virginia this year, so obviously you're peers have recognized what she does in that space, but her husband, as she mentioned, leads Virginia 4-H. So the transparency and the struggles in your space as truly educational professionals helps us understand and know that we're fumbling things too. We're all doing the best we can, but the tools and the resources that you shared are very helpful. And as soon as the recording is ready, I'll send this out to everyone that registered for this session, as well as the slide deck, so you'll have access to all of those resources. And any previous session you want to view, you can always find those on our extension webpage or our YouTube playlist. Your feedback is also always welcome, and we'll be back next week, same time, same place, with a different topic. But Andrea, thank you so much. This has been a joy to have you.
Thank you so much.
So
And
much.
if you have any questions, my email is going to be on the presentation that Crystal sends. Please email me. I appreciate it so much. This was fun.
Great.
Everyone.
All right.
All right,
Thanks,
take care.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.